Hellmaster EX. This award-winning system features the first single-engine joystick with digital electric steering and new autopilot capability. See Hellmaster EX in action at a Yamaha Outboard dealer or visit YamahaOutboards.com.
The Fishing News is sponsored by these fine partners.
Happy New Year! Welcome to 2025 and the very first of 52 weekly editions of the video fishing forecast for the New Jersey, Delaware Bay region. I'm Jim Hutchinson, the New Jersey edition editor of the Fisherman magazine, and coming to you a bit later than normal, similar to last week. Of course, we've been navigating our way through the midweek Christmas holiday and New Year's holiday, so this video coming to you a day after Thursday, Friday, January 3rd. Oh, July, I'm already thinking ahead. But it is time to put the nose back to the grindstone after we've gotten through this little holiday break. That, of course, means deadlines. We are working on the February edition of the Fisherman magazine right now. But it is that January edition of the Fisherman that's on newsstands right now. All those beautiful boats on the cover of your January edition of the Fisherman magazine. You can get one on a newsstand in the New Jersey, Delaware Bay region right now at your local convenience store, your Wawa, maybe a tackle shop that is still open. Better yet, you can come out in January and find us at one of the shows. A lot of shows where we're not there, some of the flea markets will get some complimentary editions as well. But if you're at one of the shows where the Fisherman staff will man a table, you can get your new or renewing subscription to the Fisherman magazine and also get a set of Danko pliers that we'll give you anywhere the Fisherman magazine has a subscription table in 2025. You can find us this show season, get your new and renewing subscription, get that set of Danko pliers, the Doughboy Tournament Series. They're valued at $29. It's a 6.5-inch set of pliers. They're hardcore and ready for you. And all it takes is for you to renew your subscription to the Fisherman magazine or get a brand new subscription if you're looking for one in a newsstand every month and would like to have that delivered. Be sure to check out our calendar of events. That is on page 10 of the January edition, and you'll have all the shows that are coming up in January into February, so you can choose something to get yourself through those winter doldrums. Now, as the calendar turns from 2024 to 2025, a couple of things to keep in mind. First of all, black sea bass is now closed until the spring. Yes, the stock size is twice the rebuild target, double what fisheries managers had originally set as a goal. It's not overfished, but it's actually overbuilt, but we still don't have a January or February fishery for any additional for hire opportunities this year. Now, this actually, 2025 marks, I believe, the 15th anniversary of that government action to restrict the sea bass fishery to practically nothing. I want you to think, you folks that know New Jersey pretty well, think about how many for hire boats, how many charter boats and head boats were in operation 15 years ago and sailing for black sea bass. Go down to Cape May. Think about that. Think about Barnegat Light. I don't get it either. 15 years ago this month. In our news alert, our e-news that came out on Tuesday, I have a little write-up, and that's posted at thefisherman.com. The good news is that there will be no reduction in the sea bass fishery in 2025. A status quo determination agreed upon by NOAA Fisheries, so you can expect that fishery to reopen again in May. We'll find out for sure, because I don't think there's going to be any tweaks to the season size or bag. I don't think there's a possibility of doing that. But the New Jersey Marine Fisheries Council does meet next Thursday. I'll have more information about that, the first meeting of 2025. Now, in addition to the sea bass closure, you'll also have an adjustment to the bag limit for blackfish. That's as of January 1st. It goes from 5 fish that it was in December to just 4 fish in January. That will be in place here in New Jersey for January and February. A good option for those looking to score now on some of the for-hire boats, the charter boats that are still running, and some of the head boats. You can turn to the report section in that January edition of the Fisherman magazine. You'll find a listing of all the boats and their schedules for 2025. I know a lot more Of the captains that I've spoken to in the last couple of weeks, they've decided to pull out and take a break in January and February. But there are still some options. There are still plenty of boats, especially if you head up into Shark River. You head out of Manasquan Inlet. More for hire options running there. And many of those boats are sailing for tautog. So I was at a neighborhood Christmas party a few weeks back. My buddy Bill Purdy says, hey, I've got a trip planned aboard Fishbound Charters out of Ocean City, Maryland. Got an extra spot. Would you like to go? Well, listen, if you know Captain Kane Bounds on Fishbound Charters, he's the captain that put Kenny Westerfelt on that world record tautog a few years ago. Actually, that 28-pound, 13-ounce beast, that world record was, this is also an anniversary, January of 2015. 10 years ago this month, that world record tautog was caught. Anyway, an offer like this doesn't come along very often. So this past Friday, I had the pleasure of fishing with good friends and the honor of being aboard Fishbound Charters with Captain Kane Bounds and First Mate Kevin for a full day of togging just off of Ocean City, Maryland. We caught a couple of double-digit fish, and we loaded the cooler with a full boat limit. More importantly, I learned a lot about a very difficult fish to catch. In my opinion, it is a tautog. I don't know, it's just got me tripped up. I caught some fish last week. I just didn't have a double digit. How good is this fishery off of Maryland? As Captain Kane told me, his best trip ever was 26 double-digit tautog on one trip, that we had multiple trips aboard Fishbound Charters with 20 or more 10-pound and over tautog, including one trip with a pair of 20-pound fish, 2 20-pounders on one trip. So the first question I had for Captain Bounds when sitting down inside the cabin of that 40-foot Evans was, just what is it that makes this Maryland tautog fishery so unique?
We kind of got on the, we kind of looked at these things, you know, quite a few years back, and we had the option with regulations to actually go to 15. When we went from 14 inches, we had the option to go to 15 inches. And we actually, the state said, you know what, let's be conservative and go 16 inches. And I think that's one of the biggest things that's kind of helped this fishery for us is the fact that we are at 16 inches. It gives the fish, you know, a few more chances to spawn. Because a 7-year-old fish in our area, a fish that's 7 years old, that is a 16-inch fish. So it takes at least 7 years for that fish to become legal for us. You know, we've aged out quite a few fish. Some of our bigger fish we've caught. I think the oldest fish that we've actually aged out has been at 26 years.
26 years. And how big was that fish?
I believe that fish was, you know, I'm shooting from memory here.
Okay.
So, but I believe that fish was like 22 pounds, something like that. Actually, the world record, that one only aged out at, I believe, 23 or 24 years. So they just, you know, people think they live a long time. They don't live quite as long as you think they do, but it does take a long time for them to get that big.
If you do get the opportunity to fish with Captain Kane aboard Fishbound Charters, don't expect to pack a limit of 15-pounders in the box. Captain Kane and his crew, typically, they like to release every double-digit tautog they can out of concern for the fishery. It seems to work. Though I would point out the key word here being typically.
Now, we try to. Now, depths, and there's a lot of different factors with that, and we've learned a lot of lessons over the years of doing this, too. The deeper you go, the harder it is to get one to go back. You know, the minute when you bring a fish up and it's, you know, its scales are all kind of ruffled out, and the skin looks like it's kind of almost like its air is coming out of the skin and bubbled out, and or that the intestines are coming out of its, you know, its butt. It's, you know, they're not going to go back. I mean, they might swim down, but they're not going to live.
So you're making that determination kind of.
Yeah.
We've seen a couple of big fish over 10 pounds coming up today.
Yeah, so if the fish has its guts hanging out its rear end, no, we're not sending them back. Now, there was years we tried to do that, but, you know, doing this, you know, as long as we've been doing it now, we've kind of learned those lessons. I mean, and the reason I tell you this is, you know, there's a couple deep pieces we've tried over the years, and we said, okay, well, we're going to throw all these big ones back. We might go back, you know, a few months later, hardly catch anything.
Gotcha.
You know, we learned a lesson. You know, they just can't go up and down from that depth.
Now, Kevin and Kane probably thought it was a grind, but that's some of the best tog fishing I've ever experienced last Friday. I even caught a few keepers, the operative word being keepers. So I didn't get my double digit. That's to come, sooner or later. But the more you fish, the more you learn. And there's a lot to be learned when you're trying to pry a wily blackfish out of the wrecks, the reefs, the snags along the Atlantic coast. That said, Captain Kane Bounds was good enough to offer me a little bit of advice on finding success on a tog trip.
Let the fish eat. Everybody wants to swing right away, or they don't give the fish time enough to finish the crab. You are better off to drop down, let the fish eat, and don't swing at the fish. You know, if you don't think you're going to get him, don't swing. You miss the crab, you know, if he eats the crab, come back up, put another crab on, drop back down. You got a better shot doing that than constantly just swinging at him, swinging at him, swinging at him. Especially a larger fish. That fish is just going to go away. You definitely want to give the fish time to eat. Second is, in our area, we get a lot of people that, you know, fish a little too light. I'm not saying jigging. I'm not talking about jigging. I'm talking to conventional fishing. You know, a lot of times, you know, they'll come down here rigged with 40-pound. You know, that's fine. But you know, we do have some big fish in our area. So if you hook one with 40-pound test and you just happen to rub just real quick across a piece of structure, that's it. You know, done. So we always recommend people. I myself, I like to fish 60. Kevin's a big fan of the 80. But I'll fish 60. A lot of that depends on the type of rod that you're using, you know. But yeah, that's one thing. And then the next thing is, people don't have, with tog, a lot of times they don't have the patience. I will say this, what I have seen in the last few years where fishing out of Rhode Island has become popular is the guys that go up there and fish a lot, and then they come down here right away and try and fish. They're used to getting a lot of bites up there, and that's not always the case down here, and they just don't have the patience. So the minute they don't get a bite, they're moving a rod around, moving a rod around, moving a rod around, moving a rod around. You got to give it time. You know, you got to, you know, the best fishermen that I've watched, and that's what I do, is I sit here and watch fishermen. When I watch somebody that consistently catches, they put the crab on there, they drop it down there, and they leave it for a minute, you know, a few minutes. If nothing happens, it's real slow movement. They might just pick that rod up real gently and move it till they feel a little structure. If they feel a little structure, they don't do anything. They just sit there and they wait. And they might give it 10 or 15 minutes. If nothing happens, they'll reel up, check their bait, put a new crab on, pitch it in a different direction. That's what you need to do. You know, the guy that's constantly doing this, you know, it doesn't work. Patience in this game is that's what it takes. You know, everybody says, well, how do you know, I want to get a big fish, I want to get a big fish. Well, you need to have patience. If you don't have patience, you're not going to get a big fish. You know, you want to be rigged right, you want to have, you know, the best bait, and you just want to have patience.
Now, I would mention this as well. In our conversations with Captain Kane, he noted how he felt the Delaware's reef complex offered just about the finest tog fishing opportunities going right now along the Atlantic coast. And next week, hopefully, we'll have some more toggy tips and tactics here in next week's video fishing forecast. This week, I'm heading down to Lewis, Delaware, to fish with Nick Honachevsky and a couple of friends for his Saltwater Underground show. We're going to fish with Captain Jamar Campbell of JC2 out of Lewis Harbor Marina. Again, like I said, hopefully we'll pick up a few helpful tips, and then you'll see that full episode on Nick Honachevsky's Saltwater Underground sometime this winter. Now, Sean and Ray from Grumpy's headed out aboard the Dauntless over the weekend in search of tog with fellow Grumpy alum and our open boat maven, Jenny Ackerman. And wouldn't you know it, no surprise, Jenny had the pool winner. On this week's open boat, Jenny preps local surfcasters for hibernation with some tips and tricks to get their gear ready for the spring run, which basically is just 2 months away.
Hey everyone, welcome to this week's open boat. And you might be wondering why I'm in bibs and foul weather gear. Well, it's time to pack up the surf rods and move on to either winter hibernation, or if you're like me, we're going on the boat. We're going blackfishing. It's the winter, let's go. But today's open boat, I want to talk about a little fall run shutdown for the season, some tips and tricks to prep your gear for the spring run. Starting off with proper storage. Never want to leave your stuff just like thrown in the back of your truck or in a storage bin. With my waders and stuff, I hang them up so they can air out and everything. And another important thing with the winter is checking your waders for leaks. If you suspect during the fall run season you have a leak in your waders, my favorite way to find them is, you can usually pinpoint where the leak is based off of where your sweatpants are wet. But you take a flashlight and you put them on the inside of your waders and you shine out, and you can usually find that little pinhole leak. So patch your waders for the winter season. Let them just sit somewhere and hang out, and they're good to go for the spring. Moving on to your rods and reels. During the winter, it's really good to check your rods guides for any potential cracks in that ceramic ring. You do not want to be losing your plugs during the spring on your first cast, especially when there's bunker around and you're throwing those big, expensive custom metal lips. So you can take an X-Acto knife or a blade of any kind and just run it on the inside of the guide itself. And if it catches, then you have a chipped guide. And same thing with reels. If you can repair it yourself, that's great. Always service your reels. Make sure you know what you're doing. There's tons of videos online and blueprints you can follow. But if you don't, rod and reel repairs. A lot of local tackle shops will service your rod and reels for you. So get those in to your local tackle shops sooner than later so you can have your gear back for the spring run season. Now, with your plugs, if you have a lot of old reliable plugs that you fish in the fall and also in the spring, you're going to want to check them out. Check their hooks, make sure the hooks are still good. Even if there's like a little bit of rust on them, I'll literally swap out my hooks. Check the eyelets and everything. Make sure there's no cracks in the plug itself. You can always hopefully replace it for the spring, but just make sure everything is good to go. And last but not least, one thing I like to do when I don't need to service a reel is when my rods are just laid back here for storage, loosen your drag. A lot of people will leave their drag tight on a reel, and for that reel to be sitting like that for such a long time, like months, it can really just, imagine if you constantly gritted down on your teeth like this and you did that for months on end. That's gonna screw up your entire face. It's gonna hurt and everything. So that's what your reel on tight drag is doing, just sitting there, not putting in its work. So loosen the drag, let it chill out, relax your face, don't have it super duper tight when it's not in use. But remember, for the spring run, when you go out, tighten your drag so you don't lose a fish. Always remember to do that. That's very important. So yeah, those are just some quick little tips for the fall run shutdown, prepping for the spring. So hopefully you guys all had a really good fall run season. I know it wasn't as, picturesque as we always want it to be. There was a lot of trial and error and finicky bites, but we made it work. So keep an eye out for the Surfcasters Challenge too. If you guys participated, I just released one where it's your favorite lure. So if you have a lure or a fish you caught this past season or even the season beforehand, I don't mind, that you caught on your favorite lure, go back in your camera roll and shoot me an email and send it to me to be featured. Those are going to be coming up. And I look forward to future open boats in the new year. Happy New Year also, everyone. And Merry Christmas. Open boats in the future are going to be great. We've been trucking along here. This is the second New Year's Eve message I sent to you guys for open boat. So thank you guys all for watching and leaving comments and emailing me and telling me at the shows, what you like, everything like that. And I look forward to seeing you guys at the show season, or maybe you'll see me out there blackfishing. I know I'm going to be doing a lot of that in the coming months. So I'll see you guys. Prep up for the winter, get ready for hibernation if you're not fishing, and let's get ready for some spring run fishing. I'll see you guys on next week's Open Boat.
The boats, bargains, and fun are back. The New Jersey Boat Sale and Expo. Hit the water for the best fishing season ever with savings on center consoles and fishing boats for inland and offshore. February 13th through 16th. New Jersey Convention and Expo Center, Edison. JerseyBoatExpo.com.
Life is better with a boat.
For more than 20 years, anglers everywhere have come to know one thing: that nothing says no to fish bites.
Now, from now through January and into February, you can expect a slow pick of stripers here and there along the open beaches this winter. I mean, if it's a mild day, the wind's not howling and it's not brutally cold the way it's supposed to be in the next couple of days, why not throw some small swim shads or an Ava and a teaser? We do have residents throughout the winter, occasional flare-ups down in South Jersey and Cape May County in early January. It's happened before, right around the time of the Wildwood Fishing and Boating Expo, which is coming up, fast approaching. Again, get that information in the calendar of events. Yes, ocean waters in New Jersey and Delaware are open to striped bass fishing year-round. But here in the Garden State, I would remind you that anglers are prohibited from targeting striped bass west of the coal regs in January and February. That means west of the inlets, the back bays, and the salty rivers. That's another blurb I wrote up this week at thefisherman.com. You'll find that in that e-news blast that went out on Tuesday, but go to thefisherman.com for the story that I wrote on New Year's Eve. It tells you what the coal regs are, and again, it's that reminder that you can't target striped bass at all in New Jersey, in the back bays in January and February. We can argue about that all you want, but that's the rule. While you don't have stripers to target out back this month, you do have white perch. I spoke to the crew from Hook House in Toms River, and they said the night bite on outgoing water is where you want to target putting some bloodworms out. The folks there said that the perch fishing was a little bit better over the last couple of weeks. It was slow heading into the holiday weekend, but white perch are always an option for those looking to put a few panfish on the table. I also heard from Rob English, who was out around Christmas on the kayak. He too found a mess of chunky perch. So again, as you get down into the southern half of the Garden State, try going into Allen's Dock, talk to Justin. Chestnut Neck, open from time to time. You might want to give them a call. And of course, Dave at Upseekin Bay Sportsman. He's always trying to keep bait in shop throughout the winter months, and especially for white perch. You just want to give him a call. Again, you'll find all these phone numbers in the January edition, in every edition of the Fisherman magazine. Some of our favorite partners keeping you updated on what's going on through these winter months. From white perch to yellow, there are plenty of freshwater options right now in the tri-state region. Salt or fresh, just make sure you're registered and or licensed for a new year of fishing. It's easiest for me to remember saltwaterregistry.nj.gov because I've been saying it for so long. Saltwaterregistry.nj.gov. If you go there, there's a button on the right-hand side of the page. That's the register button. You take that, it'll take you through. When you select that register, it'll take you through to the New Jersey Integrated Electronic Licensing System to get all your Legal Eagles type stuff. You can get that free registry for marine fishing. You can also go over there once you're in the system. You get your freshwater license and your trout stamp. You need that right away. You'll need a license in Delaware, of course, in New York and Pennsylvania too. Wherever you plan to fish in 2025, make sure you get that required license, stamp, and or registration. I'm sure if there's any ice fishing to be had, it will be found first in the higher elevation of the Poconos. It gets a little bit colder out there. In fact, from the sound of things, the stiff winter winds are beginning to howl down there at Beltsville. Hunker down for this week's freshwater update with my friend George Schauer, your Pocono Outdoors Guy.
Well, hey, Jim, it's windy conditions up here in the Poconos. Things are really changing. You know, last week we had that sub-zero temperatures, lots of ice buildup. This week we've had 55-degree temps up here in the mountains, rain, really putting a hurting on some of that ice that we've built up. Well, I'll tell you what, there's lots of guys out taking advantage of the open water we have now. You know, up on the Delaware River, we had Tim Keemer. He checked in. Him and his friend Doug were out putting a hurt on some of those local walleye. I feel like one of those cable weather guys now. And out in the Delaware, so they're certainly getting some fish there. Out on the Susquehanna, my good friend Nick Canestra, he was out getting some smallmouth on the river too, so there's still some good fishing there. And even on the lakes where you have open water like Hutchinson, Waddle Compact, there's still lots of good fish there. Jeff Clark checked in on my home lake of Beltsville. Well, he was out there and he got himself a blue striper and a bunch of walleye as well for his efforts. So if you can brave the weather out here, you're going to have some really good fishing. Now, the upcoming weekend, guys, are looking for really cold temps, so we'll start to develop that ice again, but just go about it safely over the next week. Guys, I hope you get out and get on, have a great new year, and let's start the year off with a new PB. Catch you soon. I'm George, your Pocono Outdoors Guy.
With 3 convenient in-water locations, Waterfront Marine has one of the largest inventories on the East Coast of premium brand boats. Their exceptional service department, fully stocked parts department, and ship store will ensure smooth sailing after the sale. Visit our 3 locations or online.
Check out George's hotspot write-up of Beltsville. It's on page 71 of the January edition of the Fisherman magazine. It's opposite of Bruce Litton's tail end feature on page 70. 2 ice fishing pieces side by side in the January edition of the Fisherman magazine. It's starting to feel a little bit like ice fishing in the region. That, of course, is our boat and motor buyer's guide for 2025. You'll find the latest boats and outboards reviewed by our own Captain John Raguso. It should help you this winter when walking the boat show floor, perhaps in Wildwood from January 10th through the 12th, or if you're heading up to New York City to the Javits Center for the New York Boat Show, January 22nd through the 26th. The dopey headline of the week comes to us by way of the United Kingdom, the Mirror newspaper out of Britain. Cheerio. Apparently, the Brits are just getting around to a fact long known by American fishermen, that spiny dogfish, the scourge of the Western Atlantic, is used to make fish and chips in the UK. The International Union for Conservation of Nature is often quoted in newspapers for their red list of threatened species. This so-called red list is something the radical enviros latch onto in order to make a point. And apparently the enviros are making a point in England right now, pushing fish and chips joints to stop selling spiny dogfish before they come, as referenced in the Mirror article, before they become extinct. That's right, after virtually eliminating the spiny dogfish fishery in the United States, black sea bass too, leaving our entire ecosystem at risk due to an environmental ecological imbalance of management, the enviros have now gotten the English reporters to believe that, quote, spiny dogfish are at risk of going extinct. That's a New Year's resolution I could stick to. If you're togging this week, as I am, you're apt to encounter a few of those threatened spiny dogfish, hopefully not too many. A piece of advice that I'd gotten from Frank Mahalik years ago. Frank fishes all the time for tog, and he's a go-to source of information in the Fisherman magazine. You'll see his tog articles all the time. Anyway, Frank mentioned to me, don't bounce those sinkers around. He says if you're bouncing up and down and throwing up a poof of sand and the bait's moving, that's what's bringing in those dogfish. It's very similar, if you listen to that piece from Captain Kane before. You want to fish a slack line, keep it still, and the more still it is, the less opportunity you are to get yourself into one of those dogs. By the way, congratulations to Frank. While I was down in Ocean City, Maryland this past Friday, Frankie was out with Captain Tom Daffin of Fish and Fever Charters out of Cape May. Got himself a 12.5 pounder that he released. Also had a couple of 7-pounders, an 8, and a pair of 9-pounders as well. So we go from the world record holder down in Maryland to the two-time state record holder in Cape May, Captain Tom Daffin. Again, that's a long wait to get on Fish and Fever as well. So get yourself into the waiting list, into the queue for some of those top tog guys in New Jersey, Jerry Postorino or Captain Tom Daffin. But again, if you're looking for a tog trip right away, there's captains right now that are still sailing and trying to build up some of that year-to-year business, because a lot of folks will get that business. You find a spot that's open in January or February, you grab it, because a lot of these captains will say, now you're locked in for 2025. We'll get you into another trip sometime later in the fall. Again, this month is the 10th anniversary of the world record tog. Roughly 3 years ago today, this week, actually it was 2 weeks ago, 3 years ago last week, was when that state record was caught on Captain Tom Daffin's boat. So 'tis definitely the season for tog, and it's my pick for the best bet heading into this first full weekend of 2025. Catch them up, my friends, and remember, 40 days till pitchers and catchers report, and just 56 days until the reopening of striped bass and winter flounder here in New Jersey on March 1st. Dare I say, we are in the home stretch. Well, at least we're finally counting down the days.